We got the yellow one. The white one. Alright, welcome everyone. Thanks for coming out in the warm air. Let's just get some logistics down first. Homeworks, quizzes, and how the next 10 weeks are going to go down. I wasn't very good at doing that last week, so I also wasn't very good at covering all the answers you have to do for your homework and quiz. So review today whilst you have the quiz in front of you. How's that? Yeah. So let's hand out the quiz.
We did that. Got it.
Huh?
Got it.
Got it?
Yes.
We've handed them out.
Handed them out.
Nice. We'll review that in just a second. Also, there's a list going around of everybody's email. Yeah, nice. So just in case we have to cancel class at the last minute or we got some important thing to send you, please pass on your email address and your name. We'll also, I want to encourage everybody to please take the quiz and homework as best or as worst as you can. Even a millisecond, if you're in one class or all classes, it doesn't matter. If you spend a millisecond writing down these answers on a piece of paper, is 1 millisecond more that you will have this information in your consciousness, which is the point of things, not about getting it right or getting it wrong or getting it right. It's just about giving your mind time to habituate these ideas. So, passing email list around, every class will start with the quizzes. I'll review, so you're encouraged to get the right answers. It doesn't matter if you're told the answers or if you read the answers. The point is that you spend time in your mind thinking about these things. Because something happens at the end of the 10 weeks if you've got this information collectively in your head. Yeah. So let's start by just consider for a second your motivation for coming to this class. You've made some effort to get out into this cold air. And I know I say this every class, but every class it has to be meaningful. So every class you want to think, what is it that I'm doing here on the planet? And these classes should be practical and meaningful for you to use the stuff in your everyday, even just one idea. So let's start with our mandala offering and then taking refuge.
Sashi Puki Jishin Meto Tram Viram Lingshi Ninde Gimpadi Sangye Shindu Nikte Uagi Drokun Nandak Shinla Juparsho Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kanyuyatayami Sangye Churam Saki Choknam La Jongchu Bardu Dakni Kyatsuchi Daki Jinyegi Pet Sononki Jola Kanshir Sangye Juparsho Sangye Churam Soki Choknam La Jangchu Bardu Dakni Kyapsuchi Daki Jinye Gipe Sonam Ki Jola Kanshir Sangye Juparsho Sangye Churam Soki Choknam La Jangchu Bardu Dakni Kyapsuchi Daki Junye Gipe Sonam Ki Rola Kanchir Sange Juparsho.
And then let's just take a little moment to settle our minds and do a meditation as we enter into some incredible teachings. Take a comfortable seated position. Make it your own personal time for development, focus, insight. It's just you. So allow your mind to relax. Anything you could be worrying about will be waiting for you when you finish. So take an opportunity to rest from all the mental activity and see if we can direct the mind to something higher. Focus on your breath. Don't force it, just observe the breath entering and exiting your nostril quite naturally. And then begin to sharpen your focus by feeling the sensation at the tip of your nose. See if you can find a difference in temperature. Where does the sensation occur? Just count from 1 up to 10 breaths. If you get lost by thinking something else, don't fret, just begin again. It's just a practice. See if you can do one last scan of your body and your mind, relaxing any tension in your body, particularly your face and your shoulders. Just relax. In your mind, give yourself permission to be present. And begin now by inviting your teacher or lama or someone revered who entire teachings for you. Ask them to please come. It's an imaginary being or a real being, it doesn't matter. The point is that you feel a sensation of a presence in front of you, either visually or you sense it. They're sitting in meditation posture in front of you, just you and them. And recognize that they embody every aspect of wisdom and compassion you can master. You can imagine. What would a fully evolved and realized being feel like to be in front of? Or the closest thing you can come to that. Be comfortable in their presence. Feel some kind of joy for having them in front of you. Think of one of their qualities. What would a mind free of suffering be like? How would they be experiencing this moment? And as you look at them, you see them smiling at you. Spend some time on their eyes. Be comfortable in their eyes. See that if in their gaze you can get a glimpse of what it would be like to be at peace, to have ultimate understanding of all things. And imagine what they would be thinking and feeling when they observe you, and the knowing in their consciousness that you too can be free of suffering. The wish in their heart to help you. So conjure up some kind of offering as a thank you for being present, for coming to you. Offer them the most beautiful thing you can conjure up. Just simple and beautiful and natural from your heart, something you wish to show them or give them. Regardless of what it is, they will only perceive it as ultimate bliss. And with the power of that in front of you, see if you can recall the biggest mishap you've had mentally or physically or verbally today. Any time that today in your world you brought some kind of negativity to your world, some kind of heavy afflictive emotion that took over you and you either acted on it or were captured by it. See if you can recall a specific moment and generate some sense of regret in your heart for having acted in a negative way where your goal is to be happy. In doing this, you begin to clean up your mind to be present. Just a simple act of recognizing you could have acted differently, and some kind of will to act differently in the future, because you know that acting differently will give you relative happiness in the moment and ultimate happiness in the long term. Feel some connection with the being in front of you as they recognize your efforts. And then turn your mind quite genuinely to the most beautiful moment of your mind today. Where were you the wisest today? Where did you act against negative habituation? Where did you act towards compassion? Some kind of act of mind or body or speech that you did in your world to bring about happiness. Spend some time getting your mind to that moment. Observe it, replay it, and allow your heart to feel joy for creating the courses of goodness. It's very simple. It's okay to be happy. and you feel happy for having done a goodness to your mind and your world, let your heart expand. And feel some kind of love growing between you and the being in front of you who recognizes your steps to enlightenment, your efforts towards this. And ask them please to teach you at every time to be present like they are now. Whenever you walk through your life, whatever occurs, may their presence be strong, and may you always learn. Ask them. And watch them agree and say, of course. Then ask them to stay. To please stay. And as you ask them, observe them rise up and turn, facing the same direction you are, getting smaller and smaller until they begin to glow. Powerful, impotent, floating just above the crown of your head. Spend a moment feeling what it's like to have ultimate wisdom and compassion guarding you, protecting you, pouring in inside of you realizations at every time, available to you when you are present. When you're ready, you can open your eyes. So review. Hello everyone. Let's see. Do we have a quiz? So I'm going to show you all the right answers. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So I encourage you highly to grab one and write it up. Thank you. Oh, David, you take yours. Okay. And I'll just take this. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so before we start, what did we get last week?
Where did we go?
What did we get out of last week's class? First thing that comes to mind, I don't care if it's in the quiz or not, like really, what did you walk out of last week with, if anything?
Studying the Abhidharma Kosha.
We're studying the Abhidharma Kosha, thank you very much. That could be one of the answers. Yeah. But we're studying the Abhidharma Kosha. What is that? It's a text written by Master Vasubandhu. Good.
It means more or less the thing that gets you in the
Okay. Yeah. The thing that gets you to Nirvana. Cool. What year are we talking about? In historical context? Yeah. Good. Maybe. So the question is, why are you studying? Why are we studying? This course is on karma. So why are we studying this text in relation to karma? Does someone remember? Yeah.
I wasn't here, but I would say to get rid of mental afflictions.
Yeah. So the text here.
Nirvana.
Yeah, so the text is a collection of works that describe so many things to get you from here to there. Right? So let's. How many chapters are there in the Abhidharma Kosha? Let's have a look. 8. Yeah, cool. So I rushed through that last week, and that might be some of your homework questions. So let's see, name the root text for studying. Give the author's name and his date. Give the name of the main commentary. Okay, what's the main commentary we're using?
Illumination in the path.
Illumination in the path.
That's it.
By
H.H. Dalai Lama.
His first, His Holiness the first Dalai Lama. Yeah, we say call him the first Dalai Lama
Later.
way after just because he was so awesome that oh, he'll be the first Dalai Lama. Right? And he was a student of
Jason Kappa.
Jason Kappa, who lived around.
Jason Kappa or
Yeah, Jason Kappa.
1357, odd numbers, 1357 and 1419.
Okay. Now, we keep saying that in these classes, right? And it's like, yeah, so what? So it's this guy, he wrote these things. And I was talking to Steve today. There's a reverence that comes to my mind when I allow myself to think about the people who had human lives like you and me, meaning they were born, they have to poop, they have to eat, you know, they get sad, they get happy, they've got to fall asleep, and they live in a world with no electricity, but 350 AD, okay? No public transportation, no MTA, no lattes.
No.
Yeah, no lattes, I swear, except in Italy, for about 300. No, the latte going to being around, no. But think
The
about it.
first barista.
Like, these are real humans on the planet. This guy, Master Vasubandhu, 350 AD, he habituated into his consciousness these 7 great books that were the pre-books to the Abhidhamma Kosha. The collection of these 7 books, which were the sutras, the stuff that was spoken by the Buddha, written down by the first council, yeah, where the knowledge of the Buddha, verbal transmission was finally written down. Out of that came these 7 collection of works, great mass works, all of which are lost. Yeah? This is a collection of that. That's why it's called the treasure house. Yeah? Because it connects the condensed version of all that high knowledge that gets you to the life. So this dude, Master Vasubandhu, besides all his other accomplishments, as the planet goes around the sun, and day and night comes and goes, and he needs to eat and sleep and travel by horseback or walking 350 AD, gets this entire knowledge, deeply studies these things, practices to the point of realization, and writes the condensed version for us to spend a couple of hours here and then go, oh yeah, that's nice. Like, the influence of this thinker on the east, in the eastern side of our planet, has lasted since then to this day. The fundamental ideas about where things come from, thanks to him. And you know, and so there's a reverence that comes when you think about blabbing off the name of Vasubandhu. If you think about it for a second, somebody gave like, we're so busy, right? We've got all these things to do all the time. He could have done anything with his life. And instead, he's captured and written down ideas that are revolutionary to the inner psychology, the way that we function as creatures, that removes suffering. Like, you could write about anything. You could have written about the average lifespan of a snail in Asia. You know, you could have. People write. There's all sorts of information out there. Out of all the possible information, and then we talked about the 4 qualities that make the Buddhist book, or a book worth reading, really. Do you remember what they were? It had to be.
Subject had to be worth studying.
Had to be meaningful. Had to have a purpose. That purpose probably had to be what? To get you to nirvana, to get you out of something. It's going to be like something substantial. And then the 4th part? So they have to, one logically has to fit with the other. Each part of the book has to fit together, the purpose and the meaning and the steps to it. They have to function together in some way. And he completely did this, so it's special, is what I'm saying. And it's not like everybody at university is studying this. It is a philosophy that is rare, and unless carefully internalized, it can be lost. And for the rare few who actually grab this information and use it, and my job is to try and link it to today. Yeah? And your job is to try and say, well, can I use it? Because here I am on this big green, blue orb floating in space with 7 billion other creatures, and most of the time we're wondering what the hell's going on. We're pretending that we're safe. In New York we've got some great happinesses, we've got some lattes. And unless something strong or horrific happens to you, we go day in, day out, avoiding the big questions, because we're sort of comfortable. But then when we have the big questions, if it's not too late, is it glass in here? Have you pointed my hand down? I think it cuts my hand. So what I'm saying is it's worth studying, it's special. But it's not special from its own side. It's special when you turn something on. Not useful from its own side, otherwise everybody would pick it up and use it. You have to connect with it and do something. So I encourage you, let's please listen for the application part of what we're covering. And if I'm lingering on stuff that's not applicable, challenge me, ask me. And say, oh, how do I use that? So what's the point? We can talk about it today. I'm excited about today's class because we look at some of the first lines of the Abhidhamma Kosha and the chapter on karma, which is why we're studying this text, by the way. The root text, the Abhidhamma Kosha, has 8 chapters. Let's quickly review the chapters so you'll get to understand that the entire canon of Buddhist ideas on some things come from this great book. It's one of the great 5 books that are studied in all monastic circles. It's the main book in all Theravadan tradition. Okay? So chapter 1 talks about the category of all existing things. So it talks about absolutely everything and categorizes them, but in summary, it categorizes them into stained and unstained things. Things that rot and things that don't rot. So this is chapter 1. Yeah?
Is it saying that clouds? What's another way?
Yeah, as Asi was saying, you could say that, but not. That's not what I meant. I meant stained and unstained, things that are produced by impure karmas, if you like, and things that don't. But most of the stuff we interact with all the time is under the category of stained. It's not the point of the class. It's just to tell you that chapter 1 looks at all categories of all things, and then so all existing things. Then the next chapter, chapter 2, we talked about the powers. Remember, we had 21 powers, 6 of which are our sense powers, etc. But that's the reason it's doing that is when it looks at chapter 1, says these are all the existing things. Well, how do they occur? So then chapter 2 talks about the powers that make them occur. It's beginning to look at perception as the source of where all things come. Right? So it looks at mental functions, Buddhist psychology. It's an elaboration a little deeper on all existing things. Out of all the existing things, let's look at these powers, these sense powers, the way we interpret everything, because that's where the key is. That's chapter 2. Chapter 3 looks at the description of all the realms. So it looks at the suffering world. Chapter 3 looks at the suffering world, and what that means specifically is the planet and all the beings on that planet. So there you'll get the division of time and space and measurement and all the way down to the smallest subparticles and all the way up to the biggest galaxies are all described there with funny names and But it looks at this thing called the suffering worlds. And in Tibetan or Eastern philosophy, the world isn't just a blue orb floating in space, it's a whole bunch of unseen things as well. So we talk about the six realms and the wheel of life, etc., etc. So you see the progression, right? Look at all the stuff, out of all the stuff, let's focus on these things called the powers, which is the way we perceive all this stuff. And then let's look at the worlds we create, or the worlds we experience within this perception. And then chapter 4 is describing where suffering comes from, where these suffering worlds come from, these broken worlds, these stained worlds, with birth and age and sickness and death, the commonality of all creatures here. Where does it come from? So it's about karma, and that's the whole section we're studying. In fact, we're studying a tiny, tiny part of that part. Yeah, but this is the important stuff. It describes how these suffering worlds come from, where they emerge. And it does it in two parts. It will say to you, the world comes from karma. And then it will say where it comes from karma. And it will say to you where it doesn't come from. It doesn't come from a creator or a source, and we'll cover that today. So then, quickly I'll go through. If that's true, then chapter 5 deals with mental functions. Well, how is that true? Let's look a little bit deeper about how perception works to produce worlds. And then chapter 6 looks at, once you figure that out, it's called the person and the path, and it looks at practitioners, which means a being, I don't care which philosophy you aspire to, whether you're this school or that school or a Buddhist or a non-Buddhist, it refers to a being, a creature who has figured out that through my mind I can change this world. And so it's practitioners of those beings and the path, meaning how to work with mind to shift your experience of world, which will shift your world. Chapter 7 talks about wisdom, which is the path. Chapter 8 talks about balanced meditation. But it talks about it from the perception of a Buddha, so it really describes what a Buddha perceives and etc. And it's a shame we don't cover it in this class. It's a beautiful, I think if I had more time to study, I'd want to spend a bit more time about that, because if we had a very clear idea on what it's like to be free of suffering, what it's like to be abiding in a state of nirvana, Buddhahood, we'd probably make more efforts, and it would make more sense. Yeah. So then we also talked about the 4 qualities of a book, which we covered, and that, ladies and gentlemen, should be your review class and your quiz. Did I miss anything?
A couple small ones.
Yeah.
The literal meaning of the words in the title of the root text.
So do you remember the literal meaning of the words? Yeah, approaching towards all existing things, referring to what's the biggest or the dharma.
Nirvana.
Good. Kosha?
Treasure house.
Treasure house. Why was it called treasure house?
Because it contained all the points of, and the 5 points.
No.
No, 7.
The collection of those 7 words that came before it. Yeah, cool. So it was the essence of that. Thank you so much, Pedro. Anything else that I missed?
What things does the word Abhidharma actually refer to?
What do they refer to?
Ultimate knowledge of the 3 high paths, which are of the 3 high paths of seeing and habituation and then other.
Thank you very much. Good. Okay, so
My question, what the memorization assignment,
yeah,
where do I find, I couldn't find the knowledge and understanding list and what's the problem.
what was the question again? Sorry.
And the memorization assignment,
Yeah.
they asked for memorizing 4 lines of that.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's a mistake we've got in the readings because I didn't give them to you until now. That's this class. I'll give you that now.
Okay.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. So let's look at the first few lines of the Abhidharma Kosha. If you say lele, is that up there? Yeah. Lele, Jikten,
Jigten,
Natsokye.
Natsokye.
So just say it for the sake of Master Musabandu, who wrote it down. This is how chapter 4 begins. Say Lele,
Lele,
Jikten,
Jikten,
Natsokye.
Natsokye.
Okay. So that first le refers to deed or action, which means karma. Le, karma. This, if you're going to copy or translate anything, this is really essential. Yeah? So le, the first one is karma. The second le, unfortunately, is from, and I don't know how you tell the difference, but you're a master translator, and that's what you spend your life doing. Good on you. So le means karma or deed, an action. Le means from. Jikten means, literally it means a basis to be destroyed, something that will be destroyed, some basis which will break down. But in this case, it refers to world or planet. So Jikten here is a big basis to be destroyed is a planet, a world. So in this case, it means world or planet, the world. Yeah? And natso means various or multiple, many. And here means they come on, belonging. So what do you think Lele, Jikten, Natso here means? We actually. And you got to read it backwards.
They come various world from deeds karma.
Say that again.
Many planets come from karma.
Many planets come from karma. That's
Many worlds come
good,
from
good, good. So let's swap it around. What did you say? Karma comes from, no, it's the planets that come from. Okay, good. So it says deeds cause multiple worlds. Yeah? Or karma causes multiple worlds. Don't forget, the meaning of world in Eastern philosophy isn't the solid planet with water and earth only. It's a whole bunch of sentient creatures perceiving this thing. It refers to a multitude of levels of existence within a place. It's not just the place. It's a much more complex idea. So if we learned anything at all from the last course, which was ACI 4, at the very minimum, you should have had some inkling. We should have dented some idea that if we got the essence of that logic, that something of you continues after death. Yeah? If you got anything at all out of the last class, as Westerners studying this thing, right, you should have dented some idea that we got in childhood that when you die, we don't ask anything until we get close to it. Yeah? Or when you die, you probably have a whole bunch of subconscious patterns that come from the world we grew up in. If you got anything at all from last class, it should have informed you through logic that the mind and the body are separate, and that if one moment of mind is caused by the previous moment of mind, and you trace all the way back to the very first moment of existence on this planet, in this body, that had to come from somewhere, and you would argue that it was logically a previous moment of the same mind. Not mum's mind, not dad's mind, not created by mummy and daddy, not created by something else. We did all these debates, remember? So at the very minimum, we should have gotten the sense that there's this continuum, this river, that is our consciousness, that we forget because we think we are this incarnate thing. And therefore, that something will happen to you after this point. When this stops being what it is, if you got anything out of last course, you, the thing perceiving this, doesn't stop. It rolls onto something else. Like everything. Like everything. At what point was this a glass? When did this start being a glass? Was it not sand and heat and things? And before it was heat, what was it? Before it was sand, what was it? Before it, the same with the water. What was it? Always water? Was it here? At what point? So everything is like this. Everything in this realm is like this. Why would your mind be different? The only thing that isn't that. Everything is. Comes into being, looks, comes into being. One causes the other, causes the other, causes the other. We're going to get deeper into it. So if we've got anything at all, from last class, it should be that this me creates that me in this world, and then after that, something. So it's natural that this class, we should think, well, what to do to cause the next thing, right? So that's why we're doing karma after ACI 4. But that's why it's important, because if you got a sense of it, if you dented some habituation about how you really thought you came to be and what really happens to this thing you believe to be you, and its limits and limitations, etc., then it's important to know what to do. What action? What is action? What produces this? So the next few classes are vital to observe and crack and go against a habituation that only leads to suffering. So the way we do things leads to things breaking down. And so it's important to look at how we can shift the way we've been experiencing things.
When someone dies in this realm, is there any way to tell, like for example, Master Vasubandhu, is there any way to tell if he became a Buddha, or if he is, or is that just sort of irrelevant to?
No, it's a good question. Anyone got an answer?
No.
It depends who's looking. Okay. This is a beautiful thing about, we won't go too much into it, but once you get an insight, some kind of true realization, some understanding that the world is coming from you, like he says, karma causes multiples of worlds. Yeah. If you understand that quite literally your perceptions are creating this world, you're not choosing it, but your perception is forming this world, and that things don't have inherent existence, don't possess some kind of existence from their own side. And that would then explain why everybody has a different opinion or understanding of different things. Yeah? So one person does an action, someone thinks it's a good thing, someone thinks it's a bad thing. Things don't have that nature inside. Then it's quite possible for someone to be a realized being sitting right next to you, and you perceiving them as something normal, and someone else perceiving them as someone who's just entered a state of nirvana. So for some people, the Dalai Lama walking around the planet is an enlightened creature, emanating as a dude. Yeah? But you, for some people who have the fortune to experience a being of ultimate wisdom on the planet, are truly perceiving, and for them it's correct. And I would say the same for knowing what happened to Master Vasubandhu's mind stream. So there are practices in Tibet where you find reincarnation. In fact, the Dalai Lama is a classic example of finding a continuing mind stream. But the point of this class is to make it practical. So where are we in our evolution of perception? What true understanding do we have about that, and can we step into that with some kind of certainty? First of all, so it's we have a certain habituation on this realm. about how things work. And that's what causes suffering, according to this philosophy. Breaking that habituation, understanding where they come from, understanding what I just explained about the lack of inherent existence in the perceivable and possible, can break you away from that cycle. But really, it is like that movie overview. Right? It's like strapping a human being to a machine that's got so much fuel to go up against gravity, to orbit us out of the old habituation of seeing things as normal, takes almost as much fuel as it takes to get a human into outer space and let them look at the world from above. It takes that much energy. And even though it takes that much energy, and that because you're going against all these forces that make the world normal, even though it takes that much energy, you could be discouraged by that and go, oh my God, I'll never find enough power, energy, or resources or time to do this. But the alternative is continue cycling in this experience. So if we look at emptiness and understand that last class we got some inkling that something continues after this realm, after this existence, and now we're understanding that world comes from karma, this experience comes from our perceptions, and that things are empty of having a nature on their own side. This world, empty. Your job, empty of being shitty or meaningful. Your partner, the career you've had, every single experience you've had has no quality from its own side. It could have been absolutely anything. That it was produced this way for you specifically. Big questions, for whom? And what do you really think? Really? Because this is what I was trying to say last week. This idea is revolutionary in this realm, in this planet. Because we think a punch caused my blood to come out of my nose. And that is suffering. Yeah? But we really think that. And I was saying last week that it's like a metaphor of pouring water on the ground and seeing apple trees come up and thinking that water produces apple trees. You don't know anything about seeds. You don't understand that. You just think, oh, if I get more water, I'm going to get more of those apple seeds, apple trees. And then you put more water down and you get something else and you're disappointed. You don't know the course of things. So, understanding emptiness is vital to understanding how come we produce this world that we've got right here. And if it came from karma, then it's very important to understand karma. So let's look at karma. Actually, before we do that, Master Vasubandhu spent some time debating the local ideas of the time of where the world came from. He's saying the world comes from karma, right? But he spent some time debating the common ideas, some of which we covered in last course, but let's just spend some time here. Say Gyutakpa. Gyu means cause, Takpa means, remember that from last course? Takpa. Unchanging, good. So, one of the big ideas about where the world came from at the time, 350 AD, was that things were cause unchanging. Gyutakpa. It means original cause. It means it came from one beginning, one point. It's the Big Bang Theory, really. It's the idea that everything came from one single cause, an unchanging thing. Something that, some beginning moment caused everything. Yeah? This was an idea at the time. So the next idea, say, Sowa.
So
Is it Sowa? It's Sowa. Okay. Sowa?
In the notes it's so woe.
Okay.
Maybe
So,
that's a
Sowa.
typo.
So this means principle, primal energy. It's a translation from Solomon. Like it's not clear whether it's a distinction between a thing like a Big Bang or a being. It's some kind of universal energy or power out there. Yeah, both these things are unchanging. Number one and number two. The idea is that these two things were unchanging, and from them came the entire universe, the whole realm that we exist in. So Master Vasubandhu is going to spend some time smashing those two ideas. So the first one you can call the Big Bang. It would be our equivalent. We believe that a bunch of humans on the planet today in existence comes from that principle force. Yeah, and a bunch of us who are a little vague really think there's some mystical unknown energy out there, the big primal thing. Yeah, the universe. Yeah, and I don't know when I used to say that, because I used to say that. I had this image of this big black space with dots, like that thing helped me. But if you think about it, well, how did it help me? It stops working. Yeah. So don't ask. So, but this is the point where you have to spend some time digging deep into the darkest recesses of your most subtle awareness. Where does your world come from, really? Like, you have some belief systems. We're learning some different ones, but this is the fundamental question for understanding all of your entire existence. And we don't spend any time thinking about it. We're like, oh, it's too hard. But spending some time understanding what you really believe created this existence that you're in. Where does it come from? So the third idea at the time was Wang Chuk. Say Wang Chuk. That was originally Ishvara or Indra at the time. It's just the creator. Yeah? So it's just this idea that there was a being, a dude, who went shring, and all of a sudden all things appeared. Do you remember some of the arguments from last course that debated that? There's two main arguments that say no to those three things. Yeah? Do you remember some of the ideas?
Because he would have done it all in one shot.
Okay, so you're saying that the idea of the creator being
would have created everything and just appeared as opposed to how we see things happen. Something affects something. Things happen linearly.
Okay.
In our perception, and Creator God would have just.
Why? Why couldn't he have created time? Why couldn't he have created time? Huh?
No.
But you're on it, Paul. I mean, it's perfect. It's just answering that question.
Who created them? Who created them?
That's a perfect. It's not here, but perfect. Here's a person who created everything, right? He is the creator of everything. Everything. He is one thing out of everything. So who created him? Impossible, right? If he is the creator of, unless he was the creator of everything except me, So that was one argument. But what Paul was saying was that the idea of causality and the way we experience everything, you do this, sometimes lapses, this happens. You do that, sometimes lapses, this happens. Time, cause and effect, go completely against the idea of no time required to create everything. So why create everything? Why, if you want to have a complete experience of all things, you can create them in a millisecond. You can create. If you are creating, you can just create things. You don't have to then wait a little bit. There's something else happening if you have to wait a little bit.
Isn't the other idea that thinking about how could an unchanging being create?
Excellent. Yeah.
Changing things.
So
Doesn't that
regarding the first two, Zoa, which is the universe or the Big Bang, how can an unchanging thing produce a changing thing? That was the second big idea. So that
Then everything is changed.
because cause and effect shows that like equals like. So this produces that. And if something is changing, it means that the energy that went into it had a rise and then a fall. Because the thing rose and then fall, it changed. If it's static, it couldn't have moved to create something. If it's an unchanging thing, it couldn't have not changed from being to being producing something new. You see what I mean? And then that thing had cause and effect and cause and effect. If it was going to vomit itself out as a thing, then the thing it vomited out must be like it, unchanging. And then we should all be exactly the same. All unchanging things. So then the argument is, so why is it important to talk about this? You hold some beliefs about where things come from, really. And if you're going to investigate it and look at chipping away at the cause so that you can really manipulate your reality to what you want it to be, not leave it to chance, because you're watering for the hope of apple trees. If you're really looking for the cause of the apple tree, the cause of where your existence comes from, here are three big ideas, and we hold the three. Do you really believe things come from a Big Bang? Do they just come from nothing? Do you really think that some energy is pushing them towards you, and but that energy is unchanging? Do you really believe that there's this separate thing from you creating everything to you? Do you believe at some level that there is this being that created and keeps record of when you're naughty? Investigate for your mind. I know for me, if I have to be completely honest, there is this horrible residue from my early habituation, my early childhood, which there's this dude with a beard on a cloud. I've tried all my energy, all my logic to understand that that's impossible. That's impossible, and have created this world the way it does. All powerful, all compassionate, all loving. The creator of everything. So for me, and it's not like it's some philosophical argument either. It's not like it's some debate between the Hindus and the Buddhists. It's not like it's nice to talk about, let's write it up on the columns of the newspaper of the time. This is fundamental to where things come from. So it's not that it's just an interesting topic. This is the cause of all existence. It's important to know where you stand on it. And that's why we cover it. You were going to ask a question, please.
I was just having a hard time understanding why that's important to understanding where things come from now.
Where do you think things come from now?
Well, no, I mean, you were talking about causality, and talking about you have to know, it's important to know where things started for you to be able to understand causality now. I'm just having a hard time understanding.
No, I'm not saying it's important to know where things started. It's important to know where you stand. What you believe. If we're talking about causality.
But if you're apathetic,
Yeah, but we live in a world that assumes certain things. You know
That's
what I'm saying?
what I'm trying to get.
And it's so easy to be like, this is so outdated, it doesn't apply. And it's like, well, no, actually, everyone believes in the Big Bang. We live in a world that basically assumes that's true.
Well,
If
it's
you
either
don't
or.
care.
but does it matter what I believe if I don't care either way?
But not
Does it
caring
matter
is
to me?
different.
Yeah.
Not caring consciously, though, is different than like deeper beliefs that are motivating your behavior.
Right.
Which,
Yeah. And that's what I'm trying to dig to.
But does that change my behavior today?
Completely does. Yeah, because if you make some assumptions, here's the way it changes your behavior. If at some level, even 5% of your mind believes that there's some dude creating your future, yeah, then you're not going to take the right actions that create your world. That's how it links.
Gets you up the hook.
Yeah, it's like, and if there's some force,
That to me is cuckoo, so that we can put aside.
Yeah, yeah.
Whether or not it was a big bang, or whether or not there was, a moment that started it, that kind of thing, I don't understand why that would change my actions to that.
because if you think that there's a Big Bang, something separate from your perception that created this entire existence, you're helpless. You can't change it. You're just at the mercy of it. And if you have just 5% of your consciousness believing that, that's how your behavior is going to come. Well, I can't change that. It's a Big Bang. It's an atom that made that happen to me. It's fundamental, and that's why these ideas are radical in this world, because people believed that then, and we believe some type of that now. And I challenge you. You believe some of it, and so do I, unfortunately. I mean, just take the idea of God, creator God, okay? And all the subtle meaning that has. The implication to action of a God means that I'm not responsible. Someone else is, yeah? I just got to be good. Don't know what good is because I get punished all the time. My mum died, my dad died, my sister got run over by a truck. Sorry, I'm sorry. Like, I have no idea what to do. So you have zero control. At some level, I mean, it's so pervasive that we don't know. You are so ingrained and soaked in it, and your mind is so soaked in it, that maybe 10% of our minds believe this. It's on the money. In God we trust. So important because it will dictate your behavior.
In ACI 4, you say that they deconstructed the idea of a creator God as a unchanging sort of source of beginning. But what about the idea of a creator God that's changing and that's beginningless? How do they refute that?
Changing and beginningless.
So, for example, like, God always was, God always is, God always will be, and is not unchanging, but is a changing thing, and is projecting into the world for, I don't know why.
Yeah. So the argument for that, which wasn't quite there, but we talked about it a little bit, was that, was it the Charvicus? That a similar God, a monotheistic religion of the time, said that there was a single created God who had three qualities: all powerful, creator of everything, and all loving. Yeah? And then the argument, the debate was that those three qualities, it doesn't matter if it was unchanging, if it was changing, yeah? Those three qualities in a creature, in a being, could not coexist and have created this world, where there is suffering at such deep and fundamental level. Because if they were all compassionate, they would either stop everybody suffering because they were all powerful.
Yeah.
So they're either not compassionate, because children are being raped and people are dying young and your loved ones go away and everything you want goes away and everything you get you're unsatisfied with. And so he's either not very compassionate or he can't do anything about it, which means he's either not all powerful. So couldn't have possibly created this kind of existence unless he wanted to be sadistic or something. He wasn't to this.
That makes sense to me. I mean, personally, that makes sense to me, but I don't think logistically it holds, because it's assuming that we know what good is and what bad is, and what pain is and what's not.
Great. So what's the definition of good and bad in the limited perception we have? That's good. It's good.
That would cause us pleasure, that would cause us pain.
Causes pleasure, causes pain. Good, bad. That's it. Hurts, doesn't hurt. Pleasure, pain.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is that it's assuming that our definition of good and bad is the same as God's definition of good and bad.
But we don't know God exists, so we only have
Yeah.
this definition.
But exactly, so we're talking on a sort of knowledge level about something ontological.
But this is the point. There's no evidence of a creator God.
Yeah.
All evidence of existence we have is what we experience. This is what I mean by it's soaked into us that we assume it must be somewhat correct. Some part, right? Like it's completely soaked, and I'm not debating it to be rude or anything, because I know that the first time I had my own thought about questioning the existence of God, I was hiding in the toilet waiting, to be, seriously, to dare question. To dare question is already highlighting the assumption that we're soaked in. And at some point I realized that if God existed, if some kind of creature existed that was all powerful, they would love me questioning. Because my questioning was not for any other intent than to find ultimate meaning and happiness on this planet. So if there was such a thing, and they wanted, and there was a benevolence about it, because this was the only way I could rationalize growing up Catholic and questioning whether God existed. That was impossible up until I was 30, 20 something. Impossible. And you couldn't discuss it, and it was like, what? Crazy. The only way after a long time that my mind rationalized it was, if there was such a thing, they would be happy. They would want me to figure out how to bring about happiness, even if it meant questioning their existence. And if they didn't like it, that's not a club I want to be a member of. You know what I mean? It's not somebody I want to hang around with. Because if they were against one being looking for ultimate meaning and purpose on a planet that is destroying itself, and they didn't want me to question them, then there's something wrong with that creature, and I don't want to be part of their kennel. Yeah? But honestly, and then I felt a certain freedom from years of being chained up to that idea. And I'm not saying it to be sacrilegious or disrespectful. It's nothing to do with that. It's not anything to do with that. It's about, what do we really know? Remember, there were the three spheres of existence. The known, do you remember what that was it? Nawa, what was it? The known reality, the hidden, and the very hidden.
Oh, Shinto.
Kokya, hidden, very hidden, and what was the obvious reality? Come on, Tibetans?
Uber Shinto.
Okay, but we only know the obvious reality. I see a person over there, there's a wall over here, I'm moving about, but we also know that there are things hidden to us. That's true. A limited perception is obvious. We have the 6 senses, or 5, depending how you count it. And through that slither, we interpret a magnificent reality. To think that our interpretation of reality is a mistake. And we know that there are things hidden to us. Like gravity for a while was hidden to us. Like the nature of atoms was hidden to us. Lots of things are hidden to us. We don't know that there's oxygen. We don't know that there's oxygen here. But with logic and understanding and believing somebody else, you do. So there are some things that are very hidden to you that you then have to go to experts to find out. And so investigating God and all this is okay, I think. Yeah? If you have a good motivation, no harm should come from it. That's, I'm the cockroach who doesn't know well enough to venture into a place that they might find freedom. Yeah? I hope not to be stepped by the big creatures. That's how I used to think. It's interesting because there's this idea of shadow, or this word called dripa. Is that up there? No. Dripa in Tibetan is this idea that in whatever culture you exist, you are soaked in some assumptions. Some assumptions like the ones we have in the West. And digging into them will determine what you really think this world comes from, and therefore dictate your behavior, right or wrong, about reproducing a world. If we got it wrong, you're just creating more broken homes, more water in the hope of apple trees. not knowing that the cause of the apple tree was some seed under the ground that you didn't see, of a specific nature, not any seed. Because sometimes you go over here, you're going to put water and you get some other tree, and you're not sure what's happening, so you keep watering, hoping for apple trees. And all the times you get apple trees, you're happy, you got it all right. But the few times you didn't get apple trees, you're disturbed, and you're like, oh, there's some force or something there that's in these trees, but if I keep doing this, I'm going to be okay. It's a waste of time. You will never find the source of apple trees until someone says, there's a seed down there and it looks like this. And then you start digging and you discover for yourself the cause of what you want. This is it. This is the same thing. So let me just finish this part and then we'll quickly continue. So I wanted to say it's really important so that honestly challenging what it is you believe without being disrespectful is at the core of making the next few classes meaningful. Because we're going to cover where things come from, using logic of hidden and very hidden reality. Okay. So he said where it didn't come from. Yeah, it didn't come from that, didn't come from that, didn't come from that. In the Abhidharma question, that's what I'm just saying. It didn't come from these things. So he said, well, where did it come from? What is the source of all existence? And so say Deni Sempa, Dangde Je, Sempa Yiki, Lei No. So let's break that down. Deni means that. Remember Sem? What's Sem? Mind. Good. Sempa means movement of mind. Okay? Very important next few lines. Dang means and. Deje means what it moves or what it motivates, what it produces. Yeah? Deje, what it motivates. Sempa means movement again. Yeah. Yiki is, and Le is karma, Yinno is of the mind. So Deni Sempa Dande Je Sempa Yiki Leni No means karma is the movement of the mind and what follows. And what it motivates, and what follows. So what was his first line? His first line was, all the worlds come from? Karma. So the next question is, well, what the hell's karma? Yeah? All the worlds come from karma. Then he says, the argument he presents in this chapter to the ideas of where the worlds come from, a creator God, a big bang, or some energy, he says refute with these two ideas. It didn't come from them. And he said it comes from karma. So then you have to say, well, what the hell's karma? And that's the point of the entire course. So what is karma? So it says karma is the movement of the mind. Wow. Yeah? So your consciousness shifting from here to here. Yeah? And we'll cover this. This is mental karma. Yeah? And what it motivates, what follows. And this will include only two other things. And they are, so imagine, this is practical. Imagine how you function. Your mind moves, you have some emotion, idea, inkling, sensation, something, you get something in your mind, and what does it motivate?
Speech.
Some action, something. You either say something, I hate you, I love you, I want that, I don't want you. you verbalize what's in that mind, yeah? Or you jump up and get it, or do it, or grab it, or punch it, or something. You use this form to do stuff, driven by the mind. Karma is the movement of the mind and what it motivates, what you do with that movement. I'll show you how there are two basic divisions of karma in the next thing, but let's have a 10-minute break, come back at 9 o'clock, and in less than half an hour we'll finish, answer any questions, make it meaningful, and no, next back channel, something. Apply. Thank you. It's so funny. Some people claim him to be the detailist school. So not the Tibetan schools, these are old Indian schools, so it's the 50 okay? So you have the detailist called, let me look at last week's notes. Because he wrote about the Abhidhamma Kosha, because he talked about the reference of the detailist school is only to reach nirvana. There's no Buddha there, there's no Amahayana path, it's Hinayana. Yeah.
Nirvana.
Nirvana, yeah. So he wrote this text. Some Tibetans say, or some commentators they say, that he was a Madhyamika Prasangika. That he was of the higher schools. But some people infer that he wrote this text because he wanted to purify talking bad about him, which is interesting, right? So, of course, this text, Abhidhamma Kosha, all throughout Southeast Asia, in Pali Canon, etc., and in all the Mahayana schools as well. Yeah? In all the schools, this is studied.
It's like I think he was talking about the higher section as Nirvana.
Well, we're talking about it because it is in that section of the canon that says it's Hinayana. So he wrote Hinayana, but he himself was Mahayana, according to the Mahayanists. You ask the Hinayanists, I don't know. Of course, yeah. But if you read some of his other works, you'll be able to tell. Because if he talks about bodhicitta and he talks about, here it is.
You got it!
Some no, I didn't got it.
Is it a feather?
No, it's not.
What do you really sharp?
knife.
Check it out.
Holy fuck, that's away. That's a
Is it?
needle. Yeah, it's a needle.
It's a needle.
Oh my god.
Yeah, which suddenly
Do you want more hot water?
I would love some more hot water.
Okay.
Is that okay? Well, that
Yeah.
too.
No, I agree with you. I just don't. What I've been putting up against recently is, I don't know if I believe there's a logical argument against it. Like, I still don't feel fulfilled. I mean, I agree with it, but I'm still like, there's no. What's the logical argument against there being a creator God, which is no beginning, endless, just in the same way that we talk about minds from unbelief, that is creating everything for reasons we don't know. It's similar to the Christian viewpoint that
Without those reasons, knowable.
that knowable. No, but that's the whole point of what I believe is the Christian faith is you can't know the will of God, so you just sort of trust it. Oh, look at what you're doing.
Wow.
Oh my God, it's a real.
Sorry, I got a stuff on your
Oh my God.
Stuff on
You totally got that into
your
that.
I went in.
She operated on it. That's amazing.
Get you one that isn't
No, that's fine.
What you do?
There was this big needle, I kept sticking my hand on it.
Sorry to interrupt you guys. Keep going. There's no logical argument.
The question is, what's your experience? And with that limited experience, what can you confront? And what can you not confront? You could, that's just an idea. Yeah, no one's seen God. No one's heard of him for a long time. You know, but if God, because when you get to the high teaching, you begin to see the other faith with reverence. Because understanding that the word God invokes in people and understanding that there is something producing the world. Yeah. With certain qualities begins to be synonymous with your understanding of mind strength. And this is just words to understand that creation. So I've got no problem in seeing divinity, it's called divinity, functioning in the world. No problem. But before we jump there, we really understand the limitations of our perception. Really understand what we know and what we don't know.
Okay. So you can put your right with
Understanding that life is suffering, that was produced by something. If it was produced and changing, it can stop. And if it can stop, that's no longer feeling. And the only way to make that happen is by producing up. To actually have an experience of divinity and have beings appear to you like teachers, right? It's not contradictory in our mind. Do you see what I mean? But to think that it exists separate from our perception, as somehow outside of our reality, is in my mind a mistake because it withdraws your behavior from interacting with it. So I haven't told what I really believe, and I haven't told things that I have broke out. Friend of us, and it's not like I'm having God all the time. But that kind of God, that kind of thing is put that I was taught is impossible. And in Genesis,